Sala samjhiye. Let's understand this together. Welcome to today's explainer, where we are diving headfirst into one of the absolute most crucial concepts in electrical engineering, the root mean square, or RMS value, of alternating current. Look, if you've ever stared at a circuit problem, felt totally overwhelmed by fluctuating currents and these wild, complex sine waves, you are exactly in the right place. Today, we're going to completely demystify the RMS value. We're taking it from a mathematical mystery to something you have absolute, total mastery over.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We've got a great roadmap for today. We're going to start by looking at the theoretical problem with AC, introduce this brilliant concept called the DC heat equalizer, prove it out with both graphs and calculus, look at the peak factor, and then we are going to put it all together to absolutely crush example 1.4 from the Atul Prakashan textbook.
So first things first. Before we can even begin to understand the solution, we really need to understand the problem. Why is measuring alternating currents so frustratingly tricky in the first place?
This right here is the core question I want you to keep in the back of your mind. I mean, think about it. Direct current, or DC, is super predictable. It's like a steady, calm stream of water. But an alternating current sine wave, that is a constantly moving target. It ramps up to a positive peak, drops back down to zero, plunges to a negative peak, and then comes all the way back. So how on earth do you assign a single practical value to something that literally changes every fraction of a second?
With DC, it's steady, it's wonderfully easy to measure. But with AC, you can't just take a simple average over a full cycle. If you did that, the positive half and the negative half would just perfectly cancel each other out, and your average would literally be zero. And, well, we all know an AC live wire isn't doing zero work. If you touch it, you are for sure going to feel it. So we desperately need a common baseline to measure the true effect, the actual working power of this fluctuating AC.
And that brings us to a really elegant solution. Engineers needed a bridge, a way to compare apples and oranges. So they found an incredibly clever workaround to compare these two very different types of currents. So the crucial point is this. The RMS value is just the value of AC current that produces the exact same amount of heat in a specific resistor over the exact same amount of time as an equivalent DC current. That's it. Heat dissipation is the great equalizer here. When you use heat as your baseline, we don't really care about the crazy fluctuating wave anymore. We just care about the actual work it gets done.
Now, here is where the math gets really cool. Think about the formula for heat. Heat equals I squared times R times T. Do you see that? The I, the current, is squared. Because of that little square, it completely doesn't matter if the AC current is currently in its positive half cycle or its negative half cycle. Any negative number squared just becomes positive anyway. Because of this, both the positive and the negative fluctuations of AC are producing real positive heat.
All right, so that's the concept. Let's actually prove it. Let's transition from the theory to the actual mathematical proof, and we'll start with a really intuitive visual method.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're trying to do. Instead of trying to calculate the entire sweeping wave all at once, we just take the positive half cycle and we slice it vertically into n equal tiny little parts. This gives us individual slices of current, I1, I2, I3, all the way up to n. By finding the heat generated by each of these tiny slices and averaging them out, we can easily find the average heating effect of the whole wave.
Following that exact logic, we just equate that total AC heat summation to our standard DC heat formula, which is I squared RT. The R and the T just cancel out on both sides of the equation. So to isolate I, which is our equivalent DC current, we just take the square root of the other side. And look at what we're left with. We take the root of the mean of the squared currents. That is literally where the name root mean square comes from. Kind of a light bulb moment, right?
Okay, so what if we want to be even more precise? Let's bring in the heavy hitter, the integration method. Now, do not let the word calculus intimidate you here. This approach follows the exact same logic we just did with the graphical method, but instead of a few chunky slices, calculus lets us make infinite, razor-thin slices. The source material uses this fantastic time slicing analogy. Imagine you're breaking a 12-hour period into 1-hour chunks. It works, but it's a bit rough. But if you break it down into 15-minute chunks, suddenly it's way more precise. Integration is exactly that. It's just slicing time into tiny slivers called d theta. We use the standard sine wave formula, I equals IEM sine theta, we square it for our heat equation, and then we just integrate the whole thing over a full cycle, from 0 to 2 pi.
Now, to solve the sine squared theta integral that pops out of that, we use a basic trig identity, converting it to 1 minus cosine 2 theta all over 2.
And the professor in the source lecture used this brilliant analogy. Think of that integral literally like a parent splitting a piece of property exactly equally, 50-50 between two children. The math divides perfectly into two separate, much easier integral parts that we can just solve individually.
And when you crunch all those numbers and take the square root at the very end, something really beautiful happens. All that complex math perfectly reduces down to one specific, elegant constant, 0.707. That means the RMS value of any standard AC sine wave is exactly 0.707 times its maximum peak value. Put simply, the equivalent heating effect is always 70.7% of the absolute peak current.
Because that 0.707 is a locked-in mathematical constant for sine waves, it actually creates another absolutely critical constant that you are going to use all the time in electrical engineering.
We call it the peak factor. It is simply the ratio of the maximum or peak value of the current divided by its RMS value. It essentially tells you how extreme the peak of the wave is compared to its actual effective working power. And because we know the relationship between peak and RMS is totally fixed for a sine wave, this ratio is locked in too.
So if you just do the quick math, literally dividing 1 by our RMS constant of 0.707, you get exactly 1.414. For any standard sinusoidal wave, I don't care if it's 10 amps or 10,000 amps, this peak factor of 1.414 will not change. It is quite literally a fundamental property of the wave's shape itself.
Okay, let's see how this builds up in practice. Theory's great, but let's apply all this to a real standard textbook problem. We are going to walk through example 1.4 from the Atul Prakashan book.
First, let's lay out our givens for part 1. We have an alternating current of 10 amps running at a frequency of 60 Hz. We need to find the maximum value, the angular frequency, the peak factor, and the time period. Now listen closely. Here is a golden rule you have to remember. Whenever a problem gives you an AC current or voltage value like 10 amps without specifying, by default, they are talking about the RMS value. So we're starting with an RMS of 10A.
Armed with the formulas we just derived, these calculations are actually a breeze. For the maximum current IM, we just take our 10A RMS and divide it by 0.707. That gives us 14.14 amps. For angular frequency omega, that's simply 2 times pi times the 60 Hz frequency, which comes out to 377 radians per second. The peak factor? Well, we just learned that. It's fixed at 1.414. And finally, the time period t is just 1 divided by the frequency, or 1 over 60, giving us 16.67 milliseconds. Boom, part 1 done.
Now, let's look at the slightly trickier second half of this example. We're given a new set of conditions. At exactly 2.5 milliseconds, the voltage is sitting at 100 volts. The total time for one full cycle is 20 milliseconds. From this info, we need to find the maximum voltage, Vm, and the exact time it takes to reach that maximum voltage for the very first time.
Let's walk through this one carefully. We start with our standard instantaneous voltage formula. Little v equals Vm sine of 2 pi over t multiplied by little t. Plug in the givens. 100 equals Vm sine of 2 pi over 20 milliseconds, all multiplied by our 2.5 milliseconds. The milliseconds nicely cancel out, and the math simplifies right down to the sine of pi over 4. Now the source gives a massive warning here, and honestly, I cannot stress this enough, your calculator absolutely must be in radian mode for this. The sine of pi over 4 radians is our magic number, 0.707. So, 100 equals Vm times 0.707. Divide 100 by 0.707, and we find our maximum voltage is 141.4 volts.
Okay, final piece of the puzzle. We need to find the time it takes to actually reach that maximum voltage. So we plug our new Vm back in, we set the instantaneous voltage to 141.4, which equals 141.4 sine of 2 pi over 20 times t. Divide both sides, and you're left with 1 equals the sine of our time equation. To isolate t, we have to take the sine inverse of 1, again, strictly in radian mode. The sine inverse of 1 is pi over 2, or roughly 1.57 radians. When you rearrange that final equation to solve for t, you get a beautifully clean result, exactly 5 milliseconds. That is exactly how long it takes for the wave to ramp up and hit its peak.
And there you have it. That brings us to the end of today's explainer. I really hope this helped clear things up. Once you start seeing heat as the great equalizer, once you realize that RMS is literally just a clever, practical way to compare a wildly moving AC wave to steady, predictable DC,
Does any of this AC circuit stuff actually look impossible anymore? Mastering this foundational concept really unlocks the rest of your electrical engineering coursework. It takes complex math and makes it intuitive. So keep practicing these equations, definitely keep that calculator in radian mode, and we will see you in the next explainer.